Hi guys, welcome back to Crinkles Corner. I hope you are all doing well today. Thank you so much for coming back and checking back in for this week's episode. This week's episode is really wild. I was doing research for a different case and I stumbled upon this topic and I found it so interesting. I was like, I have to research this and do a video on this. For those of you, including myself, who loves staying up late, watching movies, going out, and then having to wake up super early the next morning for work or school, it'll make you think twice about pulling that all-nighter after you hear and learn what sleep loss does to your body. This is the case that changed neuroscience. This is the case of Silvano, an Italian man whose brain literally forgot how to sleep, how to turn off. And after noticing symptoms like rapid pupil constriction and severe sweating, Silvano would check himself in to a sleep clinic in Bologna, Italy, and he would die 4 months later. Fatal Familial Insomnia, also known as FFI, is a progressive, untreatable inability to reach deep, restorative sleep. Patients generally survive for about 9 months to a year from the start of the total insomnia before dying from exhaustion, dementia, and physical collapse. After 4 days without sleep, you begin to experience severe cognitive and physical impairment. With that comes intense fatigue, poor concentration, irritability, and hallucinations, leading to sleep deprivation. You lose touch with reality, and your perception becomes distorted, making you unable to function, which in turn leads to risk of accidents and long-term health issues. The side effects that come with fatal familial insomnia, FFI, are overwhelming tiredness, loss of energy. There's brief micro sleeps where you feel like you're kind of dozing into sleep, like if you're falling asleep, but your body triggers you to wake back up. You get hand tremors. Your eyelids become droopy and difficulty speaking. And then you become at risk of getting type 2 diabetes. Your immune system starts to fail. You develop a weakened immune system. Today, I'll share with you 53-year-old Italian man, Silvano, and his journey with FFI. Silvano, in 1984, was on a family cruise vacation. They were sailing the Mediterranean Sea, and one morning he woke up, realized that he was drenched in sweat. He would go and wring his shirt out over the sink, and you could see all the sweat. He was kind of embarrassed, but also concerned. Like, why did I sweat so much? He was looking in the mirror and noticed that his pupils were constricted. They were really small, like tiny dots. He started to think and remembered this is something that he's seen before with his father and his sister, both of them who had died in middle age. Upon his return back home to Italy, Silvano couldn't sleep. He was having difficulty falling asleep. He had poor sleeping habits, but literally was not getting any sleep at all. He wasn't taking any naps. His brain was literally not turning off. There would be times where it felt as if he was drifting into a sleep, but then his body would like jolt, and in a panic, he would wake back up. His body would soon start to deteriorate. Silvano would then go to the University of Bologna in Italy and check himself in to a sleep clinic looking for answers. The external symptoms that he was experiencing were terrifying. They were scaring him. But what was happening internally inside his body was a whole nother nightmare, which would in turn be a genetic pass down by his immediate family, FFI is genetic. So your immediate close family, your mom, your dad, located on chromosome 20 is a single point mutation in a PRMP gene, which means it's a prion protein. Now, there's going to be a little bit of science here, which can be kind of confusing, but just hang in there. This single mutation causes the protein to misfold in kind of like a toxic shape. And even worse, it would go on to trigger other prion proteins in your body to misfold as well. This would start a chain reaction in the brain that kills neurons, specifically those neurons in the thalamus that regulate your sleep cycle. Now, the thalamus is the gray matter located in the center of your brain, so it's near your cerebral cortex, which is what relays functions like sensory and motor skills. It is what turns your brain on and off. So these toxic unfolded prions would destroy the thalamus. And now the switch to his brain was basically broken. As weeks passed, Silvano began to experience hallucinations. He became disoriented and paranoid, and he would act out familial rituals in a semi-conscious state. So he would do things that he would normally do on a day-to-day basis, such as brushing his hair and button up his shirt. But these are only things that he is used to doing daily. So his brain was already accustomed to doing those things, and he would act out those things in a semi-conscious state. In July of 1984, Silvano was emaciated. He was weak, underweight, malnutritioned. He was unable to eat and speak. And within a few weeks, he would fall into a state of kinetic mutism, meaning awake but unresponsive. Not long after that, he would pass away from exhaustion. Fatal familial insomnia is a very rare terminal condition characterized difficulty sleeping that becomes progressive and worse over time. Although this disease is typically genetic in origin, some sporadic cases without clear genetic basis have also been documented and reported. It usually begins in middle or later, and early symptoms include trouble sleeping, of course, as well as autonomic nervous system disturbances. For example, an increase in heart rate, an increase in body temperature. This disease gets worse over time as the amount of sleep patients get continues to decline. Patients sometimes go into a state of unresponsiveness during which they make involuntary movements that seem to be related to acting out dreams. And they can develop a variety of additional symptoms, including difficulty with balance and coordination, trouble speaking, swallowing, and hallucinations. And also, they develop these personality changes. Eventually, most patients lose the ability to enter a deep sleep at all. They never sleep again. This sometimes leads to a coma, and this disease is always fatal, with death happening just around 18 months after the initial no sleeping. On average, it does vary. Silvano's brain was donated to science. When doctors would examine it, the damage was unmistakable. The thalamus had holes in it. It looked like a sponge, as if it had been eaten from the inside out. These prions that killed Silvano, they're still active in his preserved brain, in the brain tissue, even decades later after his death. These prions are still alive and thriving. Before his death in 1984, Silvano was observed experiencing a walking coma, where he could not sleep and was largely unresponsive. to his surrounding, the things and people around him. These prions, they are one of the most feared molecules on this planet. It doesn't just infect you, it rewrites you. It makes infinite copies of itself. And they are capable of passing from one person to another, even like on contamination of surgical tools. Say a doctor is doing surgery on you and he's using a specific tool that touches a prion. Now that prion, if not properly, heavily cleaned and sanitized, that prion is now living on that tool. And if that tool is used on another individual, doesn't have to be family, you can contract that prion, and that prion will then go and destroy your life, basically. Although FFI is very rare, there's only about 70 families in the entire world that carry this fatal mutation. And even today, there is still no cure for FFI. Researchers say you can survive longer without food than without sleep. Humans can live roughly 3 to 10 weeks without food. Mind you, you still need water. So 3 to 10 weeks without actual food, but you still need that water intake. And it also depends on your fat research. But you can only last about 10 days without any sleep. And that's pushing it. 10 days is like on the border of like death. Thanks to Silvano's case, the researchers at the University of Bologna in Italy were able to identify and name this new and deadly condition known as familial fatal insomnia, FFI. It was a very short one, but I also think it was a really good one. I feel like there's not a lot of people that know about FFI, especially because there's only like 70 families in the entire world that have or have had FFI. And it's wild because if you know that your mom has FFI, then it's only a matter of time. It happens during middle age. So it's only a matter of time before you possibly, most likely, could also contract this horrible condition. That would freak me out. I don't know how I would handle that type of information and knowing that eventually it will be me. And the fact that it can also be contracted through surgical tools. That's also very scary because you have to make sure these people are sanitizing and cleaning and wiping down these tools before they touch your body. So crazy, so scary. I had no idea about FFI. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode. Hopefully I can post some fun stuff for you to watch as well. I know this one was kind of depressing, but I will hopefully post some funner stuff in the future. Be sure to check back in, subscribe to my channel so you get notified whenever there's a new episode. Now, all of you, go to sleep tonight. Go to sleep early. Get your rest. Turn your brain off. Bye.